Hey everyone, it's Nathan with Crown and Caliber, and fair warning, nerd alert. Today we are talking about Lord of the Rings. If you have ever wondered what watches the Fellowship would wear, well then perfect, you're here, and that is what we are talking about. And with me today, I have the Sword of Strider, because I am a massive nerd. And like I said, today, I'm gonna set this down, we are gonna talk about the watches that the Fellowship would wear. And granted, this is absurd because Middle-earth doesn't have watches, but I've always wondered, it's things I love, watches in Lord of the Rings. And so today, we are gonna be talking about the watches that the Fellowship in Lord of the Rings would wear. All right, guys, so I know this is absurd. We are talking about watches in Lord of the Rings, but I do really love Lord of the Rings. I grew up with the movies, and as I became an adult, I then went back and read the books, and it is something that I read almost on an annual basis. If you haven't read it, Tolkien and his world creation from languages and to different races is unprecedented. I mean, they are truly some of the best fantasy works of all time. As a 13-year-old boy, I acquired this sword, the Sword of Strider. And funny enough, it is not a sword that exists in the books. Strider, otherwise known as Aragorn, actually carries around the Shards of Narsil, which is the blade that his distant relative Isildur chopped the finger off of Sauron and was able to steal the One Ring. He carries that around until it is reforged into Arundel, the Flame of the West. So that is what we're going to be talking about today, is the watches that the Fellowship would wear, and we're just having fun, guys. So that is why I have this sword. We will get more into Strider and Aragorn as a character and what watch he wears later, but first, we're going to start with none other than Gandalf. Now, Gandalf is probably one of the coolest characters in the movies, and he's a wizard, but he's not your kind of like Harry Potter style wizard where it's like, oh, you're a wizard, Harry. Like, he was one of the Asteri, which were sent to Middle-earth by the Valinor to protect against the evil of people like Melkor and Sauron, and Gandalf is probably the wisest of them. And he is extremely powerful, and you rarely get to see the level of power that he exhibits. I mean, he's just a freaking badass, to put it bluntly. You find out at the end of the books that he is actually wearing one of the 3 hidden rings of the elves, the Ring of Fire, and I mean, that's just impressive. Like, this dude's been hauling this thing around across Middle-earth and, you know, defeating crazy enemies like Balrogs and stuff. So he's really awesome.
That's a humble brag.
Yeah, that's a humble brag, yeah. Oh, I killed Durin's Bane. So anyway, he has a lot more going on than meets the eye. But at the same point, he's about as regal as he comes. I mean, he's donned originally in a gray cloak, but eventually it's Gandalf the White. He's in a white cloak, he has a white staff, he rides Shadowfax, the fastest horse in Middle-earth. Like, the dude comes out stunting. So, for Gandalf, we chose to go with the Omega Speedmaster 50th anniversary. And here's why. It is a platinum Speedmaster. So first off, it rocks. But again, it's platinum, so unless you know what you're looking for, it may just look like a stainless steel Speedmaster. Internally, it is rocking the Caliber 321. That is the original Lamania architecture redesigned by Omega caliber in this watch. I think this is super cool because, again, there is more than meets the eye. Gandalf seems like an old man, but is, like I said, one of the most powerful beings. The 50th anniversary Speedmaster looks like a Speedmaster, but has one of the most iconic chronograph movements in it. And as a cool little touch, the subdials on this 50th anniversary Platinum Speedmaster are shards of meteorite, which again, I think is kind of cool because it's otherworldly, and ultimately Gandalf, Mithrandir, is not from this world, but was sent to Middle-earth to protect. So that is our pick for the watch for Gandalf, is the 50th anniversary Platinum Omega Speedmaster with the original Caliber 321. Now we are on to Frodo. We are going to go through the Hobbits now. And for Frodo, I think there needs to be a little bit more context. And this goes for the Hobbits in general, where they are very ruddy and resilient beings. And I feel like maybe the movie doesn't paint this picture as well, but there was not another being that could carry the weight of the ring like Frodo could. And so I think that is somewhat maybe lost in the movies, but ultimately the watch we picked for Frodo is the Garmin Phoenix. And this is because if Frodo had had a GPS watch, I'm pretty sure this journey would have been over a lot sooner. not only that, the watch has things like temperature readings, it has an altimeter, it has a barometer, it has a heart rate monitor, so we know when Frodo is getting overly nervous, or maybe when the Eye of Sauron is starting to look at him, and we know, hey, maybe you shouldn't put the ring on right now. So I think if he had had that, there would have been a lot less casualties, and the journey would have taken a lot less time. So kind of a quick pick, but almost a no-brainer. Frodo needs a Garmin Fenix GPS watch for his journey into Mordor. All right, so sticking with maybe the more electronic and digital watches, we are going to do Samwise Gamgee next. He is the effective sidekick to Frodo. And again, I'll address this point pretty much in every Hobbit we go through, is I think his character is somewhat understated in the movies. Frodo could not have done this without Sam. Sam was kind of the rock to Frodo in this sense. And I think the perfect watch for Sam is going to be a G-Shock Mudman. Now, I went with the Mudman because it is arguably one of the most durable watches you can have. It has 5 radio band frequencies so that it can set itself based off the location. So whether you are in Bree, or you are in Rivendell, or you are in Mordor, your time is going to be accurate. And another point, this watch is solar powered, which is really going to help Sam. So for a couple of reasons, Sam is able to save Frodo from Shelob, the massive demon spider, because of the light of Galadriel in the vial, and that light basically shines bright and not only saves Sam and helps him effectively defeat Shelob, at least in the moment, it can also power his watch. Again, the vial with the light of Galadriel helps him rescue Frodo from Cirith Ungol, the tower, as they are trying to pass into Mordor. So that is the perfect watch for Sam. It's a watch that is extremely durable, extremely rugged, sets the time itself, and is solar powered, which he is able to use with the help of the light of Galadriel. So continuing on with our hobbits, we are now going to talk about Merry and Pippin. If Frodo and Sam go together, it's almost impossible not to put Merry and Pippin together. And I think the movies, again, somewhat diminish the uniqueness of these two characters and their story arcs, but they are inextricably linked. So we're gonna pick up the story arc and why we've chosen this watch for Merry at about the same point that we will the one for Pippin. Merry and Pippin are both going to be getting similar watches, but different watches. So we will start with Merry. We will start with Meriadoc Brandybuck. That is his full name, but we will just call him Merry. Basically, Merry ends up becoming connected with Theoden, the king of Rohan, basically pledging his allegiance, becoming a squire to Theoden. Theoden then goes on to the penultimate battle at Pelennor Fields. Merry's told not to go. Merry secretly goes with Éowyn, and together they end up killing the Witch King, preventing a gruesome death of Theoden, and kind of establishing themselves as greats in the lore of Rohan. And so because of that, we decided to go with the Seiko Alpinist. Now we went with this for a few reasons. First off, Seiko is a brand that many people may not know makes phenomenal watches. I have Seikos, and I've had multiple Seikos, and they fly under the radar to a lot of people, but the watches they make are unprecedented. They are exceptional watches. And similarly, a Hobbit, a Halfling, seems kind of like a throwaway character. What could they do? There's no way they could kill the Witch King, but like I said, Merry, along with the help of Éowyn, the niece of Theoden, managed to kill one of the most infamous characters in Lord of the Rings. So that's why the Alpinist is great. Also, it is the colors of Rohan. It is a green dial with gold accents, and I think that just furthers the connection that Merry inextricably has through his lifetime with Rohan, and particularly the relationship that he has with the late Theoden. So that is why we chose the Seiko Alpinist for Meriadoc Brandybuck. So next up is Pippin. Peregrine Took is his full name, but we will call him Pippin. And like Merry, Pippin is going to be getting the Seiko. And again, that is because we think that this character, like the watch, is somewhat underappreciated, very much a sleeper, and has a wonderful story arc. And here's why. So Pippin is a very curious character. He ends up touching the Palantir, which is a seeing stone that they receive from the defeated Saruman, and has a first-hand encounter with Sauron. Because of this, he is in grave danger. Gandalf whisks Pippin off to Gondor, and when he gets to Gondor, he then interacts with Denethor II, the Steward of Gondor. This is Boromir's dad, feels guilty about the death of Boromir, and ends up pledging his allegiance to the Steward of Gondor, becoming a guard of the Citadel. Through a bunch of convoluted events that I will not get into here, He basically helps maintain the stewardship of Gondor through this other son of Denethor II, Faramir, saving his life and gaining great notoriety in Gondor. And so because of that, we decided to go with none other than the Seiko turtle in stainless steel, black dial, black bezel, because the colors of Gondor are black and silver. And I think this story arc is just as good as Merry's, where you get to see unlikely characters rise to the occasion and do something that no other character could do and protect and preserve lineages of these wonderful realms in Middle-earth. So there you go. Peregrine Took, along with his counterpart, gets a Seiko in the Seiko turtle. All right, now that we have finished up the Hobbits, moving on in our watches for the Fellowship, we come to Boromir. Spoiler alert, Boromir dies. He unfortunately suffers a gruesome death at the hand of the Uruk-hai, many an arrow, but it's valiant after being tempted by the ring of Frodo, and Frodo runs away. He then goes to help save Merry and Pippin. Unfortunately, they're captured, but Boromir passes away. So the watch for Boromir, son of Denethor II, would have been the Brightling Emergency, because if he had had that, maybe he would have had a chance to survive, because clearly the Horn of Gondor was not good enough to call upon his allies. But the Brightling Emergency may have been enough. So there you go. For Boromir, we think the Brightling Emergency would be the perfect watch. Rest in peace. All right, so we have 3 remaining members of the Fellowship, and we will be starting with Legolas. So Legolas is the elf in the Fellowship. Now he is an elf of the Woodland Realm in Mirkwood. He is actually the Prince of the Woodland Realm, and elves in Lord of the Rings are actually the main characters. So the entire story arc of all ages are kind of centered around elves, not man. And so Legolas has many a unique ability. He has keen eyesight, he is an excellent archer, he is light on his feet, but more about the specific type of elf that they are. So from the High Elves, they are Sindar. People refer to them as the Grey Elves or the Grey People, or even Elves of the Moonlight or the Twilight Elves. So the Mirkwood Elves are somewhat mysterious, but if you've seen the movies, you can see they're extremely elegant. So all of this to us kind of paints a character that is elegant and refined, but somewhat mysterious and almost melancholy. I think the book does a good job kind of painting that side to the Sindar Elves in Mirkwood. So we think that the perfect watch for Legolas is the JLC Ultra Thin Moon Phase. It is an extremely elegant watch. It's in stainless steel, somewhat reserved, and it has a moon phase complication. And it may be a little on the nose, but we think the addition of the moon phase when we are talking about the Sindar and the Elves of the Moonlight is perfect. So there you go, guys. For Legolas, we would go with the JLC Ultra Thin Moon. Now we are on to Gimli, son of Gloin. He is the dwarf in the Fellowship of the Ring, and he is everything you'd imagine in a dwarf. He is stocky, he is stubborn, he is bearded, but they are also fiercely loyal characters. Something that dwarves are also known for is the grand structures that they create, the Mines of Moria being one of them, and their ability in metallurgy. One of the most notable appearances in Lord of the Rings is mithril, a fantastic metal that the dwarves are known for mining and coveting, and to us that led to so many choices. What could we pick? We had thought about some crazy sin watch from tegumented steel and the metallurgy in there, or something as simple as a gold watch because they're dwarves. And so the watch that we settled on for Gimli was the Hublot Unico Big Bang Full Magic Gold. That is actually what it is called. And there are so many things we need to talk about this. First, what in the world is Magic Gold? There is literally a brand that has a product called Magic Gold. But here is why we love it. Magic Gold is scratch resistant. It is literally 2 times more scratch resistant and harder than hardened steel. And that just seems like the perfect watch for Gimli. I mean, it is a 42 millimeter full gold watch made of Magic Gold, which I don't want to fully try and unpack the metallurgy of what Hublot is doing, because it'd probably be about the same dry kind of description of things like mithril and me getting to that. But basically they are taking gold and mixing it with ceramic to create a gold fusion alloy that they call Magic Gold, which is a scratch resistant gold. And that's just amazing. So there you go, guys. You have the Hublot Big Bang Unico Full Magic Gold as the watch for Gimli, son of Gloin. So we are on to the last and final member of the Fellowship, none other than Aragorn, son of Arathorn, the individual that would carry this sword. Again, this one was only in the movies, not in the books, but we are on to Aragorn. And Aragorn was a tough one for us for a few reasons. His character seems to have some of the largest kind of transformation, if outside of Gandalf, most visible transformation. He goes from a ranger, kind of this guardian or keeper of the Northern Wood, and he was known as Strider. He was kind of mysterious. He was, you know, almost like a vagabond, to, in the end of the trilogy, he is the king of not only Gondor, but also Arnor. He has united those two realms. The Return of the King, spoiler alert, that is about Aragorn. And so he has a pretty crazy story arc. And in that, you have two pretty vastly different kind of characters. You've got this kind of rough and tumble, you know, ranger, and then you've got this king. And I wouldn't go as far to say he's refined, but he is now the king of men. And that's kind of a big shift. And so we were trying to think of what watch that could be. And guys, it can be none other than the Submariner. I mean, it has to be the Submariner. The Submariner has to be the one watch to rule them all. Precious. I mean, it is, back in the early days of the branding, it was the watch that you could wear with your scuba suit and then also wear in the boardroom. And to this day, I don't think that has changed. I think especially with the new iteration, the 124060 no date ceramic Submariner, it is a perfect example of that. Whether you are slaying orcs as chieftain of the Dunedain or ruling over the realm of men, that is the watch to wear. The Rolex Submariner is truly the one watch to rule them all, and is why we picked it for Aragorn, son of Arathorn. It just seemed fitting. So guys, there you go. This is something that I care deeply about. I love Lord of the Rings, I love watches, and who knew that they needed to be put together? I did. So we hope you enjoy this. If you have any questions, I don't know what kind of questions you would have, but ask them in the comments below. Let us know a watch that you would have picked for one of the characters of the Fellowship. Maybe let us know what watch someone like Gollum would have had. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.